But in reality, these issues aren't political. They're spiritual. Can you kind of explain how the issues of today are more spiritual than in reality?
In the '90s, I was out of college, out of the Army, and I started examining my worldview. Do I really believe what I really believe? You climb in and out of an M1A1 tank, and you realize people die for this thing called freedom. What's made America special? And you realize that America's founders were the first on the planet, and there's some today that still don't acknowledge this. The rights don't come from the state, they come from God. And Jefferson called them unalienable rights, certain unalienable rights. That's Jeffersonian for any idiot should understand this. And so I think that when you start examining your worldview and you realize that somebody's talked us out of this arena and that's been wrongly placed, I think for me, I started looking at worldview and realizing my God's big enough to be everywhere and everything. And when I read my Bible, there's not a place that says, go be salt and light, except, don't do it here and don't do it there. And so I think that whole idea of issues, I remember the first time a pastor told me, oh, Chad, we don't get political. And so I was in Durango, Colorado. I'd taken my job as GOP National Director of Faith Engagement. I was the first ever. I was kind of plodding a new path, so to speak, and creating a way in the wilderness. And he said that, and I said, boy, what do you mean? And he said, we just don't do controversial stuff. And the Lord gave me this line. I said, Pastor, do you preach the whole counsel of God? Do you preach the Bible? And I said, I don't believe life is political. It's spiritual. I don't believe the idea of biblical marriage is political. It's spiritual. I don't believe that the defense of Israel and blessing Israel is political. It's spiritual. I don't believe that religious liberty is a political issue. It's a spiritual issue. And I got to tell you, Jeremiah, I don't think a sovereign border is a political issue. It's a spiritual issue. I'm with pastors all over the country. I was in Iowa, New Hampshire last week. I've been in 15 states so far this week. This year, pastors are the backstop for the mess that government leaves when it doesn't do its job. And so the fentanyl, the drugs, the human trafficking that's going on, thousands and thousands of people coming across the border, it is a spiritual issue that has been politicized. Now, all of those issues have been politicized, I think intentionally, because we think, I don't want to do political. And so when I say these are spiritual issues, not political, I want people to understand just because they've been politicized, it doesn't remove my responsibility as a father, a husband, a Sunday school teacher, a deacon in my little Baptist church. We have to tell the truth. So what it really goes back to, and the bottom line is there's a war on truth. The founder said we hold these truths to be self-evident. That acknowledges there's a creator, that our creator endowed us with certain unalienable rights. And when you say there's a creator that's bigger than the state, you offend those elites and the globalists and the statists. Francis Schaeffer said in his 1971 or 72 book, How Now Then Shall We Live? The biggest threat to Christendom in the next generation was the statism. And I think he was spot on. It's because now we've taken God off the throne of our lives and put the state on the throne. Solve my problem, state. I got a problem. Instead of taking responsibility and having accountability for it and saying, boy, if I'm in a mess, I got to take control of my own life. And you and I know as Christians, Jesus works from the inside out, not the outside in. When he changes the heart, I don't know about you, but I used to kind of make a joke about this until TSA got so serious. I decided years ago not to bomb a plane, not to hijack a plane. I decided years ago not to rob a 7-Eleven. You see what I'm saying? Yep. Is once Jesus in your heart, you don't have to control me from the outside. But if somebody's not controlled from the inside, you can't hire enough cops to force people to do what they're supposed to. Look what we've seen the last few years. Unelected bureaucrats making rules, criminals breaking in. And if they steal less than $1,000, let's don't do anything. Well, you and I decided years ago not to do those things. That's sin in the heart, and sin is a reproach to all people. Righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. We see all this, but I believe it's been politicized intentionally to talk us out of the arena.
I 100% agree. And, people forget that the early Christians offended Rome when they put Jesus as Lord and Savior.